A cold guiding light, holding down holding down the energies. Hi Momo from San Diego. How's it going over there? Did you are you okay with the hurricanes and everything? Just getting set up here on YouTube. Welcome YouTube. It's hot. Oh, it's hot over here. Well, yeah, you're okay. Okay, good. Yeah, it's a strange summer. Got hot and cold and hot and cold. Hi, Karen. You're in Georgia. How's it going? How was your move and everything? Hey, Jenny, how are you? Welcome in. Just got YouTube going. We got everything going here. We got Karen from Roswell, Georgia. Roswell. I didn't know there was a Roswell, Georgia. So we're in the full moon energy and we are in a powerful month. Is good and bad. Oh, I bet. It's probably quite a shift to go from Georgia or from Florida to Georgia. Brand new, what's your typical routine? My typical routine, you mean on the lives? So on the lives, we talk about all things spiritual. I call it Meditation Monday, but we talk about all things spiritual. Today, we're going to talk about the full moon and the hungry ghosts, because this full moon actually is really powerful because it's the beginning of an ancient month. You know, I'm half Korean and half Native American. I have Tiwa, which is Taos Pueblo, and Dene, which is Navajo. And so I was trained in both my traditions as both a shaman and medicine woman. And so I share some of the things that I can share, what I call Spirit 101 on these lives. And today is a very interesting time because August 30th is the beginning of what we call in Asia, the Hungry Ghost ceremony. And then it also correlates within the Tono Powali, which is the ancient Toltec calendar of the original, what they call now Dia de los Muertos. So it's like these two traditions that I follow are very intertwined with this time of August, late August to September. And of course, my cat Peaky Bee joins in. But it's really powerful time because of the ancestral doorway and also the spiritual doorway that is opening. So it's interesting how from the east to the west, they had these traditions and rituals and ceremonies that we would do to honor those who have come before us and also to clear the air, so to say. Hello, this moon man. Hi, Rachel. Yes, but glad I'm not facing a hurricane. Yeah, it's good. Spirit will move you out of the way when you need to move out of the way, right? So, hi, Lindsay. How are you? Hi, April from Texas. So we're both on TikTok and YouTube, and you can always watch the live again on YouTube. But, you know, this month is powerful, this new doorway that's coming, because the Hungry Ghost Festival starts on the 30th, which is like 2 days from now. And it is a time where you clear what they call hungry ghosts. And hungry ghosts are stuck energies or stuck spirits that are neglected, abandoned, unloved, and they can cause, mischief in your life. And so at this time of the year, they would feed the hungry ghosts so that they could get love and affection and, not be so neglected and hopefully move on to a happier realm and, not bother you. Because the thing about it is that the spirit world is much more complicated than people realize, especially here in the West. And the ancestors had these sacred ceremonies, sacred rituals, sacred honorings to understand, what causes dis-ease in our world. And it was always connected to a spiritual reason, and mostly your ancestors. So you have ancestors in your lineage who didn't die in a good way. They either died too soon, too sudden, tragically. They had heavy chips on their shoulders. They wanted revenge. a whole plethora of ways. They didn't die in a good way. And so in this month, we honor them. We give them offerings, especially this full moon would be a really good time, but you leave them outside. In the native traditions, we leave spirit plates. And that's for outside. So when you're working with hungry ghosts or ghosts like that you don't want to, have inside your home, you put the offerings outside. And you can leave, alcohol, water, things that they like. And what we call it is subduing the spirits so that they don't cause hauntings and, things to go wrong in your house or dis-ease. And that's why we do the hungry ghost stuff. And one of the most popular things to do is you make envelopes of spirit money. Unfortunately, I don't have the spirit money with me right now, but this is one that I'll be burning for the hungry ghosts. Is that you write down on this ancestor money, and say you don't have ancestor money, improvise, use some kind of other paper, and just write down to the ancestors, that you love them and that you wish that they could, be happy in their afterlife, and just write a love letter to your ancestors, especially the ones who didn't pass in a good way. And if you know of any that are like that, then you want to write specifically to them. Hi, Ren. Hi, Kim. Good evening. And so those of you who are just joining in, I'm talking about the Hungry Ghost Festival that's starting on August 30th, and what we can do to honor those ancestors who didn't die in a good way and are perhaps stuck. And, there's a lot of clearings that I do for people, like say you moved onto massacre land. And that's a very, unfortunately, here in North America, especially, that's a very common thing. If there was a lot of, genocide or things like that happened on the land, and you have a lot of what I call nature spirits, or these hungry ghosts or protector spirits. Sometimes the spirits stick around because they were protecting that land, and they're like holding on to that land, and they don't like you there. And then we have to do like introductions and ceremonies and rituals to help you live in harmony with those energies. Now, another thing about the hungry ghost, and this is kind of the problem with clearings, is that some people have an energy and they're like in a lot of chaos or fear or panic or something, that is unresolved with them. And unfortunately, they tend to attract those types of spirits. And that's why on the spiritual path, spiritual cleansing and spiritual protection is the most important thing you can do for your spiritual health and your mind, body, spirit. Because if you're sensitive to energy, with which most people who come to our lives are, you have to make a daily disciplined ritual of how to cleanse and renew and protect yourself from feeling and attracting all kinds of spiritual energies. Because in shamanism, actually, lower vibrational spirits like hungry ghosts are not what we want, right? I don't think anybody was like, oh, let me work with the hungry ghosts. But in some practices, some spiritual practices, they like the hungry ghosts. They like those kind of what they call demons or lower energies or frequencies or entities, because they're favored. Like any entity or spirit or energy that you work with that needs a favor is going to be a lower frequency. Like say, I'll give you this, you give me that. And those are usually, worked with when you want something like, lust and money, let's say. If you want things that are temporary though. So if you work with these certain spirits, you're going to get paid, you're going to get money, but it's going to be temporary. Versus when you work with the healing spirits, the helpful spirits, the enlightened spirits, they're not even spirits at that point, they're beings. Some people would say like gods, goddesses, but even that term is not the fullest of it. They're enlightened beings, like a Buddha or like Green Tara behind me, or, these like enlightened beings. When you're working with them, they don't require favors. You just give because you love them. You have compassion. And those gifts that they give you in your life are long lasting. They're not just for this lifetime, they're for multiple lifetimes and beyond, because their love and unconditional compassion is so strong and so powerful that you don't have to, trade energies. You don't have to give them something. And so I always think of it like a friend. Like you have those friends who are always like, can you do me a favor? And I'll do this for you and you do this for me. But then when you're working with like an enlightened being, they're just giving from the heart. And then you're giving from the heart. And it's this reciprocity. That's what it is. What about transmutation chants, like turning negative into health, wealth, and success? Is that the same thing? It depends on the chant. Like if you're chanting to Tara, like specifically green Tara, she's the Tara of service and help. So when you chant to her, she's going to immediately come down and help you with whatever it is you're dealing with. And it could be health, it could be wealth, it could be anything. Now, if you're dealing with, some hungry ghost, I don't know, and they say, oh, chant to me and I'll give you a favor. I don't actually know of any chants they do have chants though, they do. If you're working with those, they have more like what they call spells or invocations, things like that. But when you're working with like enlightened beings that, have been passed down for generation to generation, they have specific chants and things that you say that you will know because they're ancient. They're the ancient chants that have been saying for who knows how long, the songs of the universe. And, most of those chants, you can learn, you can find them, you'll learn them, you'll find them, they'll come to you. Whatever energies want to work with, they'll come to you. But what I always tell my students is like, when you're hearing loud voices that want you to harm yourself or others, or want anything fast, cheap, and easy, you're most likely dealing with a lower entity, because higher enlightened beings don't want anything from you. They just want to love you and help you. And that's how it goes in the spiritual realm. And that's the difference between when you're working with a healing energy versus, like a manipulative energy, I guess you could say. Something like that. I hope that makes sense. But so the reason we do the Holy Ghost, the Hungry Ghost Festival, is to help, say you have those friends that need help, but they're in the spiritual realm, to get out of suffering. That's the whole point of this next month. And then we do offerings also for our ancestors. And that's the first 20 days, it's 40 days of rituals and offerings, but the first 20 days are fruits, because it's honoring all the people in our lineage who, got us to where we are now, so that we can hopefully in this lifetime fruit something. Because, fruiting something in your lineage is a big deal, because what it means is that it took many, many generations to get to that fruit, right? And then we have 20 days of flowers, because the flowers represent the beauty that those lineages gave to us, that our ancestors gave to us, that we are now able to flower and fruit. That's the whole 40 days, 40 nights. It's about flowering and fruiting. And so the offerings you want to give are like flowers and fruits. And you don't have to do all 40 days and 40 nights, especially if you don't even know why you're doing it. But if you're, in a spiritual practice and you want to do something this 30th, on August 30th, it would be a good time to, do some kind of offering to your hungry ghost ancestors, the ones who didn't die in a good way, the ones maybe didn't die in a good way, and you're like, okay, this is for so-and-so, this is for so-and-so, and I wish you the best. And altars also give you a place to grieve. It's a place where you can honor your lineage and the people who came before you, and pray that their suffering minimizes and goes away, and that they can be in peace in their afterlife, because then you'll be at peace, because you share the same genetics, you share the same bloodline, you share the same trials and tribulations and patterns of suffering. And so when you give to your ancestors, when you offer to your ancestors, when you heal your ancestors, you are healing yourself. And that's why the generational, healing is 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. And we are in the 7th generation of healing right now from the problems that have happened in the past, especially those of you living in North America, because here on Turtle Island, as we call it, we have a big healing happening at this moment in time. And all our prophecies talk about it, and all our elders talk about it, and you could just feel it. The earth changes that are happening right now are happening to heal us. And that's what I really wanted to invite into this space, for everybody who comes into this space, and why I do these lives is because I want us to know it's not a negative thing. What is happening on our earth right now is not negative. It is actually positive. And we have to stay in a positive mindset, but we also have to be intelligent about it. And we have to think about solutions to the current problems and heal and go beyond the division that is being created of, race, gender, religion, all that stuff, because all that stuff is actually not the truth of who we are. Who we are inside of us is beauty, it's love, it's compassion. We have all those seeds within us because our ancestors had those seeds, but we also have selfishness, we have greed, we have avarice, we have jealousy, we have all these other lower emotions because we also had those ancestors. And so this month is a time to heal both those things within us, to honor the ancestors who, rose above and created us so that we could survive and be in this beautiful life. And then we also have the ancestors who died tragically, who, probably aren't at peace, but now we can help. You can feel it, Diddy. How good. Kim, would this work for victims of our ancestors or our past lives too? Yeah. Because the teaching actually, this is a thing I don't think a lot of people talk about when they talk about past lives, but past lives is that you were those ancestors. You were in this lineage. You were somehow connected to the lineage that you're in right now. And so it's like a book. If one of the stages of enlightenment is you go through all your past lives, and it's like a book that you uncover. You say, okay, this was and then what you find in your book is you were incarnated into those lineages that you're now living. So it's directly correlated that you are your ancestor. And that's why some of the teachings talk about, that you have to be everything 7 times. So you were a bug 7 times, you were a tree 7 times, you were this 7 times. You have to experience all the existences at least 7 times to understand the totality of creation. And why we're here is to understand it from multiple different levels and to experience all the things. Like, you'll have lifetimes you're rich, you'll have lifetimes you're poor, you'll have lifetimes of this color and that color and this gender and that, because you're here to understand the totality and to perfect your soul. And it's a spiritual journey. That's why when you come into this earth, you come with nothing and you leave with nothing, except for the lessons and the blessings and everything that you came to accomplish here on the material realm, because you're a spiritual being living a physical experience. And some cultures emphasize that more than others. Here in America, we emphasize more the material aspects, but with this spiritual awakening, people are awakening more to the spiritual aspects. And everything that's happening in the economy, everything that's happening on the outside world is pushing us more to that spiritual existence, to live in peace and harmony, through the extremes, through chaos, through confusion, through all that stuff. Because every enlightened master did not have it, easy. They didn't just sit there and meditate and sing kumbaya. That's not how this life works. In fact, if you look at any enlightened being, they had very difficult, hard lives. And that's because they came here to overcome every obstacle, every challenge, every limitation, to rise into the truth of who they are. And then once they rose into that truth of who they are, they went and shared it with anybody and everybody they could encounter. And they encountered a lot of people who didn't like them. Even you look at the story of Jesus. I mean, a lot of people didn't like him, but a lot of people worshiped him and adored him. But the truth of it is that you won't know your full legacy in this lifetime. You'll never know how far your legacy will go, especially if you write something or you create something or you do something that's for the next generations. You may just be the seed planter, like the fruit, and then later generations will fruit that seed, because you just never know. You stick a seed in the ground and 20, 30, 40 years later, it can evolve, So feel free to ask questions. This is our show. What are your questions? This full moon, like I said, is a good time to do your rituals. If you don't know how to create an altar, you can ask questions about that. But I just wanted to jump on today and talk about this powerful time, because it is, we all kind of know that and feel it, I think, intuitively, like the fall time, and also the harvest moon is coming up. And it's a really spiritual time. It's a time where we should be going deeper within ourselves and preparing for winter, thinking about, what it is this winter we want to focus on. Winter is a little bit of a harder season too, because it's a time of the ancestors. How do you create an altar? Well, most people, because you're not coming from like a cultural background of how, altar, there's like a billion and one ways people do altars, right? Some people do it according to, this food, that food, traditional food. But what I say, because we're kind of in the modern world, and a lot of people, this may be your first altar even. So if you're wanting to do like a Hungry Ghost altar, then you're going to want to do it outside, and you could put I always say start with the elements: earth, fire, water, air. Okay, so earth, something of the earth element. So there could be something like sand with an incense, because sand represents the earth and then the incense represents the air, and you're blowing that to the spirit world. And the incense is appeasing them. It's like helping them out of their suffering. You know how when you're suffering really bad and you're maybe crying and you're not feeling good, and then you light some incense or you smell something really good, it's like instantly it boosts your mood. Well, that's the same thing why we offer incense. It's like, it's a pleasing smell, it calms the hungry ghost, the spirit. So you could do that. And then some simple offerings, some spirit, like alcohol. If somebody in your family was an alcoholic and loved vodka or whatever, you can offer that. And then like some water and maybe some fruit or nuts, something like that. There's something real simple, flowers, if you, and also, in this time, a lot of people say, well, I don't have a whole lot of disposable income for all that. You'd use what you have. Don't think you have to make this huge gesture. It's more about just doing it from the heart. You can have a can of beans and then go eat it after. It doesn't really matter. It's just that it comes from the heart. That's the whole thing. And that you're loving these beings through their suffering. Altars also get you out of selfishness and greed. That's another practice of altars. Okay, and so something like that. And then if you want to do something inside for your ancestors, you put their pictures, if you have their pictures, and then same thing, maybe some incense, or if you have a diffuser, I have a diffuser in the back, something smelling good, make some smell goods, and some simple offerings. And inside altars, you usually leave, 10 minutes to an hour That's good enough. If you want longer, you can do that, but you'll kind of know as you do altars, you'll kind of know like, oh, okay, my spirits are done feasting. I can take it down. And some people's will offer it to the outside spirits, depending on what it is, and then some people will eat the food afterwards too. So it just depends on what you feel comfortable doing. When you put food on the offering, when it's in the altar, it's considered blessed. So that's why you eat it. You drink the water, it tastes different. You could even drink the alcohol. If you have alcohol, it tastes different because the molecular structure has now changed because it's been blessed by the spirit world. So that's a common question I get all the time is, what do we do with this food? And in the East, in Asian culture, we eat it. In Native culture, we put it outside for the spirit world. But it just depends on what you're comfortable with and what feels good to you. Okay, so that's the basics of altars. I also have several videos on my page about altars if you want to look through. Can you elaborate on winter being the time of our ancestors? Yeah, the time of the ancestors is the north in the medicine wheel, and it's the time, you'll know it's the time of the ancestors because it's the time where most death happens. Most people pass over in the winter time. Because it's the time the ancestors, the aurora borealis, that's connected to the ancestors. The ancestors are very active during that time. I'm going to plug my iPad in here because it's giving me some weird warnings. Yeah. So that's a little bit about that. We'll talk more about that in the wintertime, but wintertime is also a time of stories. It's a time of healing ceremony. There's a lot of things we do in the wintertime that we can only do in the wintertime that, are sacred to the wintertime. But the wintertime is the time of the ancestors. It's a time of a lot of people crossing over. It's also the time where you're receiving the most messages and activations, so to say, from the ancestral realms, dreams, ideas, creations. It's a time where you hibernate and you go more within yourself. Let's see. I feel like I've banished some of my ancestral line. They refuse to change. Is that possible? Okay, so in our practices, we don't use the word banish because banish is like sending away. And usually when you send it away, it's like with force or malice. In our traditions, it's about doing it with loving kindness and compassion because they didn't receive that in their physical life. So it's a different philosophy and it's a different way. So that's why we do offerings and we offer these things to the spirit world because we love them and we want them to be happy and we want them to go to a good place. And so banishing is in other traditions and, there's a lot of different places and people who do that. And that's just a different way to do it. But the way that I do it and the way I was taught is you do it with loving kindness and compassion. And that is what changes a heart. See, it's just the same with people. If you go at somebody and you start yelling at them and you need to change and you need to get there, they're not going to change. They're not going to do anything. But if you approach it with love and kindness enough times and consistently, it will help melt that heart and change. Change is not easy. It's not overnight. And it's the same thing in the spirit world as it is in the human realms. I see what you're saying. Okay, good. Can you talk about how we would know if the offering was accepted? Yeah, okay. YouTube has some good offerings. So one of the ways you'll know your ancestor offerings are accepted is how the water or the alcohol goes down, which I know Nicole, is that in ceremony, you'll see like you'll start with the full cup and then suddenly boop, it's been accepted. But also as you do it enough times, it's a feeling and it's a connection and you'll feel it. And some of you are connected enough that you'll hear it and know it and the energy in your home will change. That's the biggest thing I always say is something will change, is you'll feel more peace. You'll feel more love. Something will change. Like say you have a business and your business was struggling, and then you do an ancestor offering, and then all of a sudden all these clients start calling, or, every single time you do an offering, something positive happens because it's opening up positive doorways. You're clearing, you're healing, you're releasing, you're energizing not only your bloodline, but your lifeline, like your life. Your children's life may change. Maybe nothing changes for you, but all of a sudden your kids, like, wow, this happened and that happened. And, sometimes that'll happen with clients. It's like, they really want something. They're like, oh, I wish I could fall in love, da, 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 da. And you do all these ceremonies, all these offerings. And then all of a sudden their children are just, their life may not change a whole lot, but their kids, wow, they're just changing. And that's the spiritual part of it, is that maybe sometimes the things you're doing are not necessarily for you, but for your children or for other people in your family, your parents, your, guardians, your whatever. I give the water to my plants. That's good. You want to give water to your plants, let the blessed water, and then see how it, changes. That's the thing, is like, with any spiritual practice, you should see changes. If you're not seeing changes, then you need to change something in your spiritual practice, because you should see something. And sometimes the something gets worse before it gets better. That's also part of it. If depending on how bad it is, sometimes it has to get a little bit worse, and then you hold your faith and you keep doing it, and then it gets better. But if you're consistently getting bad results, then there's something going on there. Does the Hungry Ghost altar stay outside? Yeah, and then you can offer the if you have liquor, then you offer it in front of your doors, and that's protection. Now you have spiritual protection. And then the water you can give to the trees or whatever. And the food you want to give is like something you could give to the squirrels, the deer, the whatever outside. They should be eaten by wild animals outside. Good question. Oh my God, I was thinking to ask that because I thought I was going crazy noticing the drinks going down. It's so cool. Yeah. So when you start seeing the drinks going down, that means they're drinking. I do know. It was just one of my first questions to you. Yeah. Yeah, Nicole knows about this stuff. She's been with me for a while now. It sounds so simple and profound at the same time. It's very simple. It is very simple. Mine will mark a banana with a letter, or move the cookie or fruit, or the liquor goes down from full. Yeah, exactly, Marlene. That's a good point. Is like something will shift on the altar, and sometimes the physical shift, and sometimes it's more of a spiritual, emotional, psychological shift. Being with my altar ancestors has changed my life more than any other practice. Oh, I love that, RM. Yeah. And I think it's so needed, at this time. And I think the part that we forget is that we're doing this from a place of love. It's not, see, I think a lot of people think it's to get something, or to, and that you could do that too, but that's temporary. When we're talking about these real ancient practices and why we do these things, it's permanent. We want to see permanent change. And the change we want to see is healing, love, happiness, joy, compassion, the fulfillment of our legacy and our purpose and our mission, because we know we're not going to take any of that stuff with us. And sometimes you do need money, you do need food, you do need, all the luxuries of life. Why not? But you need it to fulfill your purpose and destiny, and to help other people, because that's the whole purpose of a healing path. Is it's not just for you, it's for everybody you encounter. Because when you work on yourself and then you radiate that into the universe, it's accepted. People love it, they feel it, they're like, wow, I don't know, I feel transformed just being in your energy. And that's what we want. We want to transform the world. And it's only 20% of the population that is needed to transform the world. I appreciate hearing this, because I'm going to do this for 40 days at the end of the month. Oh, wonderful. That's awesome. Yeah, this is a really powerful month. September, October is really powerful. We have our harvest moon coming up. And it's just an incredible time to think about, what is going on in your life? What is the healing that you're asking for? What is the mission that you're given? What is the courage you're needing? Because in our calendar system, next year is going to be a very powerful year of change, and we're already seeing it. And the calendar goes from March to March. So from now to March, we're still in this 2023 energy, but it's going to change to 2024 in March. And the new fire, there's a ceremony that's done where they light a new fire, and it's a 52 years fire. So for those of us living, who especially are adults, we won't see the next new fire. This is like a really auspicious and powerful time, because we are born to be the change makers, to be the transition team, so to say, the ones who bridge the new world. And it's not yet decided, because we decided. And that's the thing. I've seen all these like videos around about gloom and doom and the economy and the this and the that, and it's all like fear-based. But the part that the ancestors really emphasized is that we're creating it. Creator didn't send down a bunch of duds. You're not duds walking around with no purpose and mission and just, no. The system would like you to think that, but you're not duds. You've been here, you're an advanced soul, you know why you came. And some people, they just came to hold that vibration. It's not you may think, oh, I don't know, I just do this, this, and this, but it's your vibration, it's your frequency, it's your energy, it's who you are. And all the people that you encounter in your world, it doesn't have to be on this massive global level. It's just everybody doing their part wherever they are. You might be here to plant plants. You might be here to walk your dog around the neighborhood and smile at your neighbors. You might be here because you're at a job where if you weren't there, all kinds of chaos and stuff would happen. Our mission and purpose is very simple. It's just to be. And while you're here, develop your spirituality, heal your lineage, do these things that you can do to make the next generations, remember who they are. The whole journey is just to remember who you are. And one of the things to remember is that you're not just here floating around with no mission and purpose. Your purpose is to breathe. It's to be here. It's to connect. It's to see what is inside of you. And to be a human is a very sacred gift, because we have intelligence. I don't know if any of you collect skulls. Who's a skull carrier? Who has crystal skulls or even tattoos or somehow is connected to the skulls? Because skull is about human intelligence, and you are, Kelly? That doesn't surprise me, but skull carriers is specific medicine. It's that you're here for the intelligence of humanity, to develop that brain you have. And inside of your brain is all kinds of psychic gifts, all kinds of spiritual gifts, all kinds of intelligence from not just this lifetime, but many lifetimes, and not just many lifetimes, but many existences on other planetary systems. The soul is so, we don't even understand it, really. We don't understand all of it. But we can't ever, that's why it's called the great mystery. We'll never know. It's like the ocean. Nobody has gone to the depth of the ocean. Nobody has reached down into the depth of that deep ocean. It's like our human existence, our spiritual existence, our soul existence. And hi, Sonia, how's it going? I think the saddest thing about the time we're living in is a lot of people have forgotten that sacredness, that we are here to be sacred. And there's people on this earth who are holding down sacred teaching, sacred rituals, sacredness. and we may never know them or meet them, but we can be grateful to that because so many have lost their original instructions, the original ways. And what is exciting and interesting about this time we're living in is that we're returning. That's what the prophecies all talk about, is that this generation, the seventh generation, is returning back to their sacredness, but we're in a healing. We're in a healing because we all need each other. We're not here just to be by ourselves. We're all needing each other. I'm sore, but I'm good. I'm a little worried, but I leave it to the heavens and our ancestors. Yeah, don't worry. You'll be fine. Did you already go through everything? But I think now they're saying you just need to heal. Relax and heal. And if you can do an ancestor offering this month. Yeah, okay. I'm keeping you in my thoughts and prayers. What does it mean when you help someone and when you get home, you fall asleep for a few seconds? Probably spent too much energy. So that's another good point you're bringing up, Marlene, is like, I see something like human, but black eyes. If you're working with energies, okay. Yeah, Sonia, I think you might have to go through some changes with your diet. And then, yeah. And then things will get better. I don't know, have they talked to you about that yet? That's what I'm hearing. But if you're seeing something like human but black eyes, are these eyes, tell me more about what kind of eyes. Are they just fully black? Like, because those are not good energies. And if that's the case, and you were blacking out, and you were blacking out after you did something like a clearing. Are you talking about doing a clearing or something? This is why your spiritual protection and spiritual cleansing is so important. So before you go home, if you deal with these kind of entities, you want to clear the energy. And the best, mother-in-law, the best way to clear your energy is to go outside and stomp. Like after you see something funky like that, because it sounds like you're a seer and you're seeing stuff and you're doing clearings and you're maybe even doing extractions, I don't know. You got to clear the energy. So before you go into your home, remember, stomp it out, clear it out, smudge, depending on how strong it is, This is why, especially in the East, they talk a lot about being careful where you go. A good stone to wear if you're doing clearings and stuff is selenite, and then just, because selenite doesn't go like negative. It always holds a positive charge. Sometimes it gets, what do you call it? Tired, but it doesn't ever get negative. Stones hold energy. Like for the cemetery. Yeah, when you go to a cemetery, not so much just going to a cemetery in and of itself is not negative. Most spirits really don't hang around cemeteries too much unless you come visit. But what we're talking about more so is like funerals. When you go to funerals, you have to up your spiritual protection and cleansing because of all the sadness and sorrow. So when you have a large gathering of people in sadness and sorrow, you are more likely to come back with spiritual attachments. And the reason for that is because these specific types of spirits, like what you're talking about, they feed off of lower feelings. emotion. So say you went to a funeral or somewhere where everybody was just crying and sad, and even you go to a relative's house and they're constantly complaining and this, that, and the other, and you're just sitting there hearing all this stuff. And then all of a sudden you feel like, oh my gosh, sad and depressed and whatever. And now these spirits like that, and they feed off that type of energy. And the Toltec traditions, we call them the chamals. Like they have depictions in the codexes of these beings that come around you. And, and I think in the Gnostic texts, they call them like archons or something like that. And, every tradition has like a name for these types of beings, but they're beings that hungry ghosts that feed off of your chaotic sadness and sad energies. And that's why people who have a lot of those attachments, it's very hard to get out, because there's addictions involved, there's all this stuff, and it can be generational even. And that's why we do Hungry Ghost festivals, that's why we do altar work, that's why, because we're trying to clear all these energies and entities. I think I process well, then ADHD memory means I have to refill to go back to things. I don't know, do you do altars, Pursuit of Peace? That's a little intense, feeding off sadness. Yeah, but that's the underworld. They feed off that energy because that's the only energy they ever knew. So if you have an energy, like say you have a spiritual attachment and all it ever knew is suffering, you know how when you're around somebody who's constantly a Debbie Downer, and they're always down, 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 and you try to be positive, the thing that person really needs is love. That's the healing. It's not to just go down to that, oh yeah, everything's, blah, 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 blah. It's the real teaching is how to stay in a loving vibration, even though everything, is sad and negative. And that's where we talk about building your spiritual body, your spiritual aura. Because when you have a strong mind and a strong spiritual body and a strong heart, those kind of attachments, you repel them. They don't like you. They're like, ooh, yuck, get out of my face. And then they go to somebody else. Okay. Oh, wait, what? I think I process well. Oh, that's a little intense. Okay, I go down with the heavy for a few days after. It's like how or where I know I'm. So if you're feeling that's what the whole empath journey is, right? Is that as an empath, you probably had a traumatic, childhood or something happen, and you had to be more hyper vigilant and hypersensitive to everything around you, right? And then as you grow up as an adult, then you're still in hyper vigilance and all that until you do trauma healing and shadow work. And then you learn how to use that as a gift for humanity. That's the empath journey. The phrase spiritual hygiene. Yeah, you have spiritual hygiene, you have emotional hygiene, you have physical hygiene, you have psychological hygiene. You need all the hygienes because it's not just one thing, especially as a sensitive person or what they call an empath or whatever. You need those things. If you don't have those things, your whole life can be misery. The phrase, okay, I want to be so repelling to that kind of energy. Yeah. And that's what the whole thing now, everybody says vibe high, high vibe, whatever. That's what they're ultimately talking about, but it's still in its infancy. But when you go back to the original teachings, the original ways, and you understand the ceremonies and rituals, you understand that it's a whole way of life. It's not just, oh, I'm thinking positive. It's not that. It's emotionally, are you balanced? Physically, are you balanced? Spiritually, are you balanced? Are you balanced? And are you walking in the truth and beauty of who you are? That's the original way. Unlocking these blocks like a combo lock. Keep doing it. Keep doing it, Pursuit of Peace. Just keep going, even when the going gets hard, because it does. It's a spiritual battle. It's a spiritual battle. Everything in this world is a battle between good, bad, right, wrong, until you stop battling and then you just go into your zone. But when you live with other people, when you have to go to work with other people, when you have to, do all this stuff in the world, you're going to encounter all kinds of different people. And the only thing you can control is you. You can't control the world. The world is the world. All you can do is master self. And then through the mastery of yourself, you can implement positive change to all those you encounter who want that positive change. There's a lot of people who love their chamals. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people who love those. In fact, they feed them, they serve them, they love their, their demons, so to say. They love those frequencies, they love those energies. They think they're the best. In fact, I've seen on this app so many people who praise it and worship it and want that. They want the fast, cheap, easy road to success and whatever thing, and they'll go for that road. That's what most people do. It's temporary. Because we are tribal creatures working on self first seems logical. Yeah. In a community setting, you have to work on yourself because you have to offer something to the community. See, in the old days, if you had a lot of stuff in your house, you were considered poor. And the reason you were considered poor is because it means that you were selfish. It means that nobody would give you something when you needed it because you had betrayed the trust of others. And so when you would go to like a chief's house, it would be completely empty because the chief had so much power and trust and, reliability, authenticity, respect, that anytime he needed something, he could go to any house and ask them, and they say, sure, no problem, we'll do this, we'll do that. Oh yeah, yeah, because you had the whole tribe that would do anything for you. And so you didn't have to have a bunch of junk in your house. You just but yeah, explains hoarding, right? Even in our modern day, people who hoard a lot, like you go to the hoarder's house, how they have those TV shows and stuff. Those people don't have a community usually, and nobody's been to their house in years. Nobody even knew they lived like that. Their kids don't come around. It's because it's like a major blockage, and it's all relating to self. It's all selfishness. And so in traditional societies, selfishness was like the worst thing you could be. In fact, in our languages, like a lot of tribes, the language when they say selfish is like, oh, it's like having the plague or something. Because, in a traditional society, it's about giving, it's about generosity, it's about your heart. And you didn't need all that extra stuff. Like my dad, one of the first teachings he ever taught me was, don't take more than you need. That was like ingrained in my head. The first teaching is self-responsibility. Don't worry about nobody but what you're doing. Don't focus on everybody else, which is what we all do, right? We're like, oh, that person. And he's like, nope, don't worry about that. You just do what is right for you. And then the second teaching is don't take anything. Like, just don't take everything unless you need it. If you don't need it, don't take it. Irony, parenting with control to perform raising unspoiled children, all fearful adults hoarding. Yeah, it's because, just think about our society now. It's a very individualistic society. And I was even thinking about that today, like looking at the neighborhood, everybody's just doing their own thing and they're struggling. But when you have like a big family or a big community and you need something done, everybody comes rushing to help you, and it's so much easier. You may not have a lot of things, but you have community. And in the real ways, if you think about it, real wealth is having community. It's having everything you need when you need it and not having to worry about how I'm going to get it. That's survival, is like, oh no, I got to pay for that. Oh no, I got to do this. Oh no, I got to do that. But when you have a community and you say, oh, I need this, then somebody say, oh, I have this. Oh, I have that. Oh, I could come and help you. That's real wealth, is to have that kind of trust and respect in a community, that people will just, whatever you need, I will be there. And that comes from the generosity of your spirit. That comes from you being there for other people when they needed you too. That's what I have learned on my journey, is like, I sit with people usually when they're going through the worst of their times, or when they're going through a huge spiritual awakening or something. And, that has been the greatest gift, because I have this community of people that, anytime if I ever needed something or something, I know that there would be people who would want to help because of the work I've done. And I think we all have that within us, that when you can be there for somebody in the worst of times and the best of times, that's true wealth. My soul misses true community. Well, you can dive into community anytime. Right now is the time for community, whether it's online or in person or wherever, find your community, find your people. It's the time. I really feel like description of real wealth. Yeah. It's the ancient wealth, because in the old days, we didn't focus on money so much. And a truly beautiful relationship being there through good and bad. Yeah. Yeah, it takes a lot of healing too to be able to hold that place, because when you're uncomfortable with your own being and your own emotions and your own feelings and your own thoughts, it's hard to be with other people and when they're going through their feelings, emotions, and thoughts. Sometimes the best gift you can give to somebody is just to listen to them. Maybe nobody has ever listened to them, and you sit there and you listen. Yeah, I used to go to these business business seminars, and they would always like say, oh, well, it's just a story. Like your life is just a story, get over it. But in true healing, you have to listen to the story, because the story is the healing. I don't feel like you should go through it all the time, like over and over and over. It's like people get stuck in a negative story. But in order to really heal it, you need someone to listen to it deeply and to compassionately, say, yeah, I'm sorry you went through those things. And all those things helped you to get to where you are now. And let's heal that, so that you going forward, you don't have to keep repeating that story. Because what happens when you keep getting trapped in a story is that it repels people, because they don't know how to deal with that story, right? And so true listening is, let's heal that story, let's heal that memory, let's heal that pain, so that now going forward you can walk in your beauty. The not taking it personal helps, and listening skills are good. Yeah. When you're not triggered, you can listen. When you're all triggered up, you can't listen. My dad was telling me when he was young and farmed at the ranch, all neighbors would come to each other's house to help pick vegetation and share with their community. Yeah, that farm community knows that the best. Because in order to have a farm, you got to have a lot of help. And that's why in the old days, they have a lot of kids, right? Because you need somebody to work that farm. Like I was just reading, like, I think Elon Musk has 10 kids. He has 10 kids. You know that those kids are going to be part of his business going forward. I mean, they're just born into it. It's the same concept. I'm learning to listen to my own story compassionately. Yeah, and that's what it starts with, is to listen to yourself compassionately, and then to have, compassion for other people when they come to you with their stories. Do you have EMDR experience? It reminds me, I'm not sure what EMDR is. Is that I'm not sure. Gates owns a lot of farms. Yeah, and he has a lot of kids too. you know, that's a whole nother topic. But I think right now it's crucial, if you have any land, to care for your land and take care of the land, because I really wish more people who were good earth takers could take care of our lands. Brain spotting therapy, eye movement therapy. Oh, I haven't heard of that. No, I haven't. I don't have a background in that. But I know there's a lot of techniques out there. There's a lot of healing modalities. There's a lot of ways to heal. It's a form of therapy to go back to early memories and reimagine them. And that kind of therapy can be very powerful. I just think sometimes, because I was a trained psychologist, and what I realized from psychology and why I didn't really go farther into that is because I think that psychology has you repeat your stuff over and over and over again, like talk therapy. There's all kinds of different psychology. But what I found with psychology and why, I went back to my original ways and my calling is that psychology doesn't address the spiritual wounds. And most people are walking around with the spiritual wound and not just a physical wound, not just an emotional wound. It's a holistic form. And when we go back to our original ways and our healing and the spiritual ways, you'll find that there's the physical healing, the emotional healing, the spiritual healing, and the psychological healing all together. The medicine wheel, for example, is a perfect example of how you can heal holistically. And I think when you're doing healing, you need a holistic thing. It can't be compartmentalized that way. It has to be whole because we're a whole being. And that's where I ended up going on my path. And I think all those therapies can be very helpful and can be pivotal and partial, but unless you're addressing the whole of your being, you're not going to find the whole healing that you need. Yes, and then you say stuck in the story with just yeah, and then it's just like come back, where it's like, okay, you need to talk it out. You need to get it out. But you also need to know tools to help you. And especially when you have a lot of trauma in your background, and then now as an adult, you're super sensitive and you're an empath and you have all this other stuff going on. You need to know how you can manage and cope with that and, shine. Because empaths are the most giving, caring people. And that's why I say I wish more empaths really took over this world and stepped into their gifts and their power and their love and their light and healed. Because when empaths own land, or when empaths start businesses, or when empaths go into government and politics and all that, they think of other people. They think of the whole. They don't think of just themselves. And in this time of the change and the new fire, we need people to step out of self and into community and into mission and purpose and why they came here to help preserve what we have now for the next 7 generations. And that's why I feel like, where the empaths really have their power, but most empaths are disempowered and not healed and just, given up or defeated, when their real mission and purpose is to be out there to help other people. Partial, powerful. I have a lot of things along as well. Good. Being of service to the community, yeah. But you can only be of service to the community as much as you can be of service to yourself. It's a two-way street. It's like if you treat yourself like garbage, you're going to treat your community like garbage. It's just hurt people, right? Because you don't know any better. But when you start to take care of yourself, when you start to, value your time and service and your mission and purpose, and you have boundaries and you're in your power, then you will treat other people that way too, because that's how you treat yourself. But when you just, treat yourself lowly, always putting yourself down, just not treating yourself right, then you don't know how to treat other people. And then that's where we have the compassion. It's just like, oh, that person is healing. They need help. But a lot of times, if people don't want your help, they don't want your help, right? That phrase is misused, or too catchphrase. Let's see. My dream is to own land and pick up caring for land for as my ancestors. I really pray your dream comes true because we need people to really take care of our land, right? Good night, Pursuit of Peace. You're welcome. I hope to see you again. But this month, kind of as a closing, is, as we're closing up this powerful August, I know this month of August, especially since that Lionsgate 8/8 has been pretty crazy. It's actually been very, very underworldy, very dark, and pretty harsh. I don't know. And now we're shifting the energies to clear out the ghosts of our ancestors and to offer and to receive the harvest. This is what the most powerful time of the year right now is, the harvest. Me and my family have been on our land a year now, but we can't afford to build. It's been hard. And it's really hard right now because of the expensiveness of everything. Like building materials just went through the roof, labor, I mean, everything. That's why I said the community becomes so important because it can mitigate a lot of that stuff. Like people have things, and build your community connections, build them up, take care of the land. That's good. And do some spiritual practices. I don't know if you give tobacco to the land or anything like that, but ask the land to attract the right people that will help you. Helping people is draining. I love helping my family, but as soon as I get home, I'm drained. That's because you need to bump up your spiritual cleansing and your spiritual protection. That's what, if you're a helper and you're giving, and that's why we talk about boundaries, but also spiritually, it's extremely draining, especially depending on what your family's like and friends. And sometimes saying no is a good thing. But when you're feeling that way, go to spiritual cleansing and spiritual protection. It will help. We have a tiny community and it has been helping. Oh, good, crazy. That's good. That's good. Just keep building and just keep, offering, keep doing what you're doing, and the doors will open. There's like voting that can happen that can change communities, but I'm not political. You're welcome, Marlene. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I think with the voting thing, I think your vote matters more in your community, in your city, and your local. I think that's where people really miss the boat, is that on the grander scheme, like national, it's hard to make a change. But when you're involved in local stuff, you can make changes much easier. I have a political background too, and I've noticed that is that when I'm on boards in my communities, that's where the real change happens. And then you can preserve and keep your community as you want it. A lot of people just don't get involved in community stuff, like local politics. Local politics is extremely boring, but local politics is where everything happens or everything doesn't happen. I remember I was on this board in Sedona, and all they were doing was arguing. And this lady, she said they've been arguing for 15 years. And I thought, oh, this is going to be like mud. They're never going to get anywhere arguing. And that's what politics does. Like, I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. And then they're both wrong. And in the meantime, the people suffer. And so real community politics happens with your neighbors. It happens in your neighborhood. It happens where you are. And the sad thing is that most people don't even know their neighbors at this point. Most people don't even engage with their neighbors. But when you engage with your neighbors and you know your neighbors and you're involved and you help, that's the real activation. And you talk about real stuff. And I think we shouldn't be afraid to talk to people who have way different political views, who live totally different lives, who are not us, because that's how it goes. You have to reach across the aisles, the tables. That's where change happens. It's not in your comfort zone. It's outside your comfort zone when you can reach across and say, okay, yeah, we have commonality. We're all in this neighborhood together. We're all going through this economy together. We're all going through this crazy shift together. We all have the same thing going on. We're just dealing with it in many different ways. I've been teaching right wingers about empathy. Well, that's good. That's good. You know, teach the right wingers and the left wingers and all the wingers. You know, I used to love getting into politics. Now I'm just like, it's the same. Now I'm more about healing. And I live in two different types of neighborhoods. One neighborhood is probably more like left and the other one is more right. And I find the beauty in both because I think it's not one or the other. It's both. It's how do we come together and heal. Listening, not talking. Yeah, we have to listen. I should point out I'm neither. I'm neither too. I've never been too into being on one side or the other because the thing is that there's a balance and there's a harmony. Exactly. See, crazy. We both said the same word at the same time. Harmony. It's about harmony. That's the healing. And that's what we need more of. You know, we just need to be in harmony and to focus on the good things and to heal the bad things and to, you know, work on a holistic way of living. And I think that first teaching of self-responsibility comes in. All righty, everybody. Well, is there any other questions? So a couple days, we're going to have the full moon. If you do altars and offerings, it's a perfect time to do offerings and altars to your ancestors and or the hungry ghost to clear your blockages and obstacles and lineages, and to give love and gratitude for those who may not be in a good place in your lineage or on your land even, and to just be in gratitude and thanks and prepare, because the next moon that we go through is going to be the harvest moon. So it's time to harvest. Oh, you're welcome, Marlene. Thanks for joining in. Thank you, Kelly. So grateful you're here. Thank you, everybody on YouTube. I'll be back next Monday. Good night, Tara. Good night, everybody. Many blessings and happy moon. Bye.